So after you have all the pieces cut out, as well as the interfacing, we're going to go ahead and get started. What I also did, because I want my brim to be a lot stiffer and to have, I don't know, a bit more, I don't know, weight to it, I went ahead and I think I did 3 pieces of interfacing. It's thin interfacing, so if you have a thicker interfacing, you don't need to triple it up, but I did that just for the brim. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and and we're only working on the outer pieces, and these are the pieces that have the interfacing. So we're going to go ahead and pin the edges. On both sides. We're going to stitch this using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And after you do that, you're going to go ahead and press the seam open and press. So once you've done this with the brim, you want to go ahead and set it aside and do the exact same thing with the sides. Wrong sides together. I'm sorry, right sides together. Pin just the sides. Stitch using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and then press open. So you have the sides all pressed open. Now what you want to do is take the top, and I didn't put notches in mine, but when you cut it out, there are the notches in there, but I've done several of these, so I don't really need to do the notches myself. So I'm just going to eyeball it. And you want to go ahead putting right sides to right side, and you want to pin it. Now what you have to do is kind of ease it in there. And this may be a bit tricky, especially if the fabric has 0 stretch in it. Okay, so once you have this set in, you want to go ahead and you want to stitch around here using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have this nicely set in. So what we want to do now is go ahead and trim this. And I would suggest trimming this with like pinking scissors, or you can do it with your regular scissors, just kind of pinking as you go around. And the purpose of this is that the brim, it sits nice and flat and smooth around the edges. So we're going to go ahead and just make sure your pinking scissors are nice and sharp, unlike these, because it makes it a lot more challenging. While we have them out, go ahead and do the same thing with these. I wouldn't use the pinking scissors. You could, but what I typically do is here, you want to just go ahead and clip the edges. And again, this is going to ensure that it sits nice and flat. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the hat. We're going to fold it right side out, and we're going to go ahead and press the seam. Make sure it's nice and flat. So once we have this ironed out, what we want to do is flip it over. We want to take this. Which way are we going here? Then flip this. Connect it at the seams. Pin it on each side at the seams first. Pin it all the way around. And go ahead, stitch this up, and then press open. Okay, so we have the outer portion of the hat completed. Now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did to the outer portion. We're going to do it to the inner pieces. In the directions, it lets you know what parts to substitute if you're going to use a satin for the inside. So you're always going to use the actual fabric for the brim, but if you don't want this part being cotton or wool or whatever you're making the hat out of, you can change this to satin and no one will see these two parts inside. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and just use the same fabric. So starting off with the same way, we're going to go ahead and pin these sides. And stitch them using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have the brim completed. We want to go ahead and do the same thing with the side. Want to pin it. Okay, so we have the side done, we have the brim, and now we want to go ahead and put the top in. But don't forget, like with the top, we're going to need some space in here to turn the hat inside out. So you want to leave like maybe like a 6-inch opening so you'll be able to turn it in. Okay, so once you have that pinned in, you want to go ahead again and stitch this up. Don't forget, you have to leave this about 6 inches or so open so that you're able to flip it inside out. Okay, so we have the inner portion with around 6 inches or so open still. And what we want to do is go ahead and with right sides matching, and we want to go ahead and let's get some. We want to go ahead and pin right at the seams. And then just continue to pin all the way around, making sure you kind of stretch to fit it. Okay, and then just go ahead and stitch, again using the 3/8 of an inch, and then press open. Okay, so we have the outer and we have the inner. So what you want to do now is go ahead and you want to top stitch around here where the brim connects the sides, as well as where the sides connect to the top. Just top stitch all the way around. Okay, so we have the outer top stitched and we have the inner ready. So what you want to do now is with right sides together, put this on top, making sure you line up the seams And do the same thing with the other side. Okay, then go ahead and stitch this up. And with this, don't use the 3/8 of an inch, just stitch as close to the edge as you can. So the inner and the outer are both connected. Now what you want to do is go ahead and kind of turn this inside out using this little 6-inch opening right here. So let's go ahead. Okay, so what we want to do now is fold this under, and you want to iron it. So what I like to do in these situations, just so that there's a real crease and a real definition here, is go ahead and first open up the seam and then iron and then close it, and then this will iron flat. So I'm going to go ahead and iron it. So after you iron it, what you want to do now is just go ahead and stitch the opening up. So you want to turn it in the same distance as the seam. You want to pin it and stitch it up. You can also just hand stitch if you want to do that, but nonetheless, there you have it. So everything is stitched up, and it's just that quick and easy.